What's that like? What's going on, people? Hey, it's another edition of the What's That Like podcast, and I'm your host, John Knowles. Well, got another new episode for you. I'm trying to pick up the pace a little bit. It's been a long summer of in-between episodes. We've only cranked out about one a month since June, and I'll blame a lot of that on myself. No one else to blame. I travel a lot for work, and we've had vacations. It's been a little bit busy, but as we move into fall here, hopefully I've got some more time, some more guests, so we can get shows out to you on a more regular basis. As you know, I do it for free. I'm just trying to grow this. I do this out of pocket. There's no ads. It's just there for your entertainment. Hopefully you get something out of it. You're getting a little bit of cool things in the area and some local history that you'll learn about. Got a lot more ideas and things thrown around. If you've got things that you might want to hear about or people that you want to hear from that you think might be a good fit on the podcast, let me know. Go on the Facebook page, shoot me a message, comment on an episode, do whatever it is you take to get a hold of me, and we'll see what we can do to get them on there. That's how we've kind of had a couple of the guests so far. It's been by listener request. So please help any way you can. If you share episodes, if you can let your friends know. Talk to them a little bit about what it's about and let them enjoy it as well. I'd appreciate that. A lot of what I do, you've noticed, is on the video side. Every single week we come to you live, at least on Friday nights, for the Turner Hall Queen of Hearts drawing. That thing just keeps getting bigger. It'll be $125,000 this week. This is the Friday for 9/29. It'll be over $125,000, I'm sure. But we keep that broadcast going. I want to thank Bobby Krug, my producer. He stepped in and filmed that for me last week while I was out of town. So thank you to Bob. And really, it's just having fun. We're trying to keep this show rolling, trying to keep episodes out to you as quickly as we can, and let you enjoy it. So let me get to my guest. It's Kaylan Schardan. You might remember Kaylan Schardan. I think she was the 4th or 5th guest we had on the show, and she was the #1 downloaded guest we've had so far. So Kaylan and I actually spoke not too long ago, and she said, I've got a lot of stuff coming up in the fall. I'd like to talk about it again if you'll have me back. I said, absolutely. She's full of stories. She's got great stuff on the paranormal side, but she's got so much great local history as well that blends into everything she's doing. So you're going to hear a little bit more stories from Kaylan about that. She's going to talk about the tours she's got coming up in both Alton and Carlinville. And if you want, I'm going to be on one of those tours. So on 10/14 in Carlinville, October 14th, we're going to be taking the Haunted History Tour. If you're interested in doing that and joining me and some of my other friends from the What's That Like Nation, you can do that. It's $25. Just go to IllinoisHauntings.com. And you can register for the trip there, or I shouldn't say the trip. It's the tour there, and have a good time with us. We'll have some fun that night. I'm sure Kaylan has promised me a lot more good stories than what you're even going to hear about on the episode here tonight. So, with that being said, let's take it back one more time to our guest, Kaylan Schardan, and see what's that like. So how you been? It's been a while. You were back here, I think it was in late April or May. So the whole summer's gone by. What's life been like for Kaylan since then?
Yeah, it's been really busy. We had the Haunted America conference, and that was wonderful. Lots of people, our biggest attendance ever.
Great.
So that kept me busy. And, it's the season for spookiness. So it's really kind of getting going right now.
Well, I'm glad to have you back. You are the #1 downloaded show of the past. So
Yikes,
of 11 episodes that we've done, if I had to bring one person back, it had to be you, I guess, because you're the one that most people wanted to hear from the first time. So congratulations on that. You're the queen of the What's That Like Nation.
Wow, I'm going to have to get that on a shirt. And I'll just start selling them and wearing it very proudly. I do appreciate that for sure. Thank you.
You were a great guest the last time. I'm glad to have you back on here now. So you mentioned you had the Haunted America conference. When and where was that?
Yeah, that was in June, and it was in Alton, which is supposed to be one of the most haunted places in America. So, of course, a great location to have a haunted conference.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. I mean, we had our biggest attendance ever. So it kept us busy, but it was a total success, and I can't wait to do it next year.
How many people came?
Over 300.
Okay.
It got a little, iffy there for a while if we had enough seats. So we did have some people standing, but they all seemed to enjoy it.
Where did you see folks from?
It's crazy. People come from all over the United States.
Yeah.
People look forward to this every year. Troy, the owner of American Hauntings, has been doing it for almost as long as I've been alive, and I like to point that out to him.
That's Troy Taylor,
Troy
right?
Taylor.
Yeah.
So he's been doing that for 20 plus years. So he's a pro at it, and it just gets bigger every year.
Yeah. What were some of the sessions like? What did you do there?
Yeah, so basically we had people not only in the paranormal field, but also people, we had like a lady named Sarah, and I think it's Sarah Soderland,
Okay.
and she does psychology in the paranormal, so that's kind of a different topic. People don't usually get that. We also had a traveling haunted museum. That's,
Okay.
really different. We had people that they run this museum, and they brought it to the hotel where we had our conference, and you could see these haunted objects. You could hold them. That's up to you. I did not. But if you wanted to, you could hold them and see what it's all about. So we had all different kinds of speakers and, of course, vendors and after-hours events where we did our own investigations.
Yeah. So where were some of the places in Alton you went?
Yeah, there were a couple different ones. McPike Mansion was one of them. The First Unitarian Church, and the Mineral Springs Hotel.
Okay, you mentioned the First Unitarian Church on the
Yes.
previous show. Tell me about the other two places.
Well, McPike Mansion is pretty much your state-of-the-art haunted house. I mean, you look at it and you know the thing's haunted, right? So it's had quite the reputation over the years of being haunted. They let people go into the cellar and try to experience anything there. Mineral Springs, that's kind of my new fave place,
Okay.
quite frankly.
Yeah.
I've had some interesting things happen there, and I'm actually going back there October 6th.
October 6th, is that on a tour?
I'm leading a paranormal investigation
Okay.
there, so.
Why is it your new favorite place? You've been a lot of places. What makes this one your new hotspot?
Yeah, and I don't know if I mentioned this on the last podcast or not, but my first trip to Mineral Springs, I actually had an object thrown at me. I had a soda can thrown, so usually that makes people want to leave, but I'm like, I have to go back. So I'm looking forward to that. Also recently did some history on the place, and I believe that I have the identity of perhaps one of the people that still reside there. Non-living, of course.
Okay. Is this something we can talk about here, or do people just have to go on the tour?
No, we can talk about it a little bit for sure, about like how we try to make sure that with all of our tours and with all of our investigations, we're giving you real history.
Okay.
A lot of stuff out there, obviously, is just kind of spread from generation to generation. Isn't exactly true. And we try to take pride in the fact that we make sure that we do our best to make sure it's accurate.
So where is the Mineral Springs Hotel? Where is that?
It's on a big hill in Alton, which is not narrowing it down at any,
Yeah.
not narrowing it down very much. But it's right now operating as, has different stores in it. It's Raining Zen, which is like the Zen hippie store that I love.
Okay.
They also have a torture museum that I believe is still up and running. And then, oddly enough, they do have residents that live there, living residents at this point. They have apartments there. So,
Okay. What's the history? Why do you believe it's haunted, and who do you think's doing it?
well, it all started back. So, 1909, there was a meatpacking plant, and they decided they were going to have build an ice storage facility there. And as they're building this ice storage facility, they struck some kind of mineral spring. So they bring in a chemist, and this chemist is like, well, now you have healing water. So, of course, they're like, well, we're not doing the ice thing anymore.
Yeah.
They're going to build a spa because they know they can make lots of money selling this prized healing magic water.
Okay.
So it opened in 1914 as a spa and hotel. And then it was open for quite a while until about 1971. Closed, unfortunately. And it's been all different kinds of things since then. With the stories of the hauntings, they go on and on forever. One of the cool things about Mineral Springs is it has 2 indoor pools. So, I mean, that was really ritzy at the time to
Sure,
have
yeah.
an indoor pool. And one of them was actually the largest in Illinois. Well, there's all kinds of stories about, a little girl. She was in the pool and she drowned and, well, it never happened. But that's one of the stories that they like to tell of the haunted pool, or the jasmine lady who wore jasmine perfume and her husband pushed her down the stairs after a fight and haunts it.
And let me guess, you can still smell jasmine.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy how that happens. Crazy because she never died there, but...
Really?
Yeah, there's no real proof of any lady falling down the stairs and dying.
Okay.
I think one elderly lady broke a hip once. And it turned into some lady dying in some kind of horrible death.
So you said you think you know who's haunting the place.
I think I know of one, and he's a man named Lewis Harwood.
Okay. And tell me about Lewis.
Good old Lewis. So he was actually from Carrollton, Illinois.
Okay.
And he was visiting the Mineral Springs, as he sometimes did. Not really sure what for. I'm not going to judge him on what he does. But he was visiting the Mineral Springs at the bar. And people, thought he was kind of acting a little funny. He was kind of a regular there. And all of a sudden, one of the managers hears this gunshot. Well, Lewis, he shoots himself in the chest. And, of course, he passes away, and what's odd about that is we actually have a suicide note from him.
Really?
That was left, I found.
Okay.
So I will share that more on the, I can't recite it to you. I didn't, oddly enough, I didn't memorize it. But,
That's okay.
On our different tours, I can share that with you to see exactly what he said. And I do believe it's quite possible that his spirit is still there.
So you talked about it a second ago. There's a lot of stories about the little girl, the Jasmine lady, and you go, none of that's true.
No.
How often, when you dig into those things, does a lot of this happen? Where it is, well, of course, I guess it's all legend, but some of it's based in fact, and you're dispelling some of those myths, right?
Yeah, and probably ticking off a lot of people, quite frankly. No, I think a lot of times when strange things happen, we don't have any kind of understanding of it. So we're trying to look for the story that goes with it. Why is this place haunted? Why are these weird things happening? And, stories start. You hear a rumor of, years ago I heard some lady fell down the steps. Well, some lady fell down the steps. She must have then died. And if there's jasmine perfume, she must have been wearing jasmine perfume, right? Mm-hmm. And you just kind of see how this all snowballs into basically some kind of weird legend that never happened.
Interesting.
That's my theory.
Well, I think it's probably pretty plausible in terms of how you're talking about that. There's all kinds of those legends in every walk of life and every building and every house you probably come across, isn't there?
Absolutely. I mean, if your house is old enough, someone's died there. Not the most pleasant thought.
Well, that's true.
But it's true.
It's probably pretty true. Where else? You mentioned the Mineral Springs. What was the other one in Alton?
McPike, and then the First Unitarian Church.
Yeah, we talked about First Unitarian. Tell me about the McPike.
Well, basically, it all comes down to when people are in the cellar, which is the only place you can really go. And that kind of stinks because the house, it's just in horrible condition. It's really not safe to walk around. So when you do tours at the McPike, you're really just going to be going in the cellar. Mm-hmm. And, and I've known of people that have gone down there and they say that, they see an orb of light flying around.
Okay.
Or that they, will hear somebody or, that they see different shadows or even feel someone touching them. I don't know who that may be or what it is, but I mean, it's definitely a cool old house and, worth a visit. It's just a shame that unfortunately at this time you can't tour the whole thing. Yeah.
So when you did the tours the night of the conference, anything interesting happen on those evenings?
Mineral Springs is where I went. I mean, I was pretty tuckered out, quite honestly, by the end of the day, but I did visit Mineral Springs, and it's an odd place because sometimes I'll go into it and it feels completely normal. And then how sometimes you walk into a place and you're like, this is just not right. Mm-hmm. It was not right that night.
Yeah.
And, we were just a couple of us that work for American Hauntings. We're just kind of tagging along. We were just going to go through it. And we were on the second floor, which is where they're kind of doing renovation.
Okay.
While we were up there, it was just a very strange, icky feeling. And we're getting ready to go downstairs, and two of the ladies I'm with say that they saw something move in a way that didn't seem human. And I don't know how else to really say that besides that it looked like it was crawling.
Really?
And that's like the creepiest thing you can ever think of, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I didn't see it, but I definitely felt there was something different that night. There's been some things in the Mineral Springs that aren't too nice. There's been reports of people literally just running out of the building, people passing out. So it's a really interesting place to go.
Interesting.
Be brave.
Be brave.
Yes.
So you're doing something else in Alton coming up, right? You got a date at Lewis and Clark. Is that correct?
I do, yeah. I am actually going to be speaking for a group of honor students at Lewis and Clark, and I'm really excited about it. I'm talking about myth versus reality. It seems pretty prestigious.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited to kind of tell them, my perspective working in the paranormal field. You're pretty much tiptoeing between myth and reality constantly.
Okay.
Between, the legend and the lore and then what's actually true. So I think it'll be a really interesting experience. I'm excited to do it.
Okay. Well, is that open to the public, or you said it's just for honor students?
I think it's for honors students. So be an honor student and you can go next
get
year.
Good grades and you get to see
See?
Kaylan. That's right. So we've got some tours coming up, right? I know you've got some in Carlinville. We'll talk about those in a second. But where else do you have some tours that the folks might want to check out?
Yeah, for being pretty local tours, Alton, of course, goes through November.
Okay.
Then we have Decatur that I believe goes through October, Jacksonville, and then if you want to take a trip to Chicago, we have trips all year round up there.
And where can people find out information about these?
Yeah, it's IllinoisHauntings.com.
Okay, and that'll give the list of all the different tours.
Absolutely.
And things like that. The ones you're mostly involved in are in Carlinville, right?
Yep, I am Carlinville girl.
You're the Carlinville girl. So
Yeah.
Tell me about the October slate of tours you have coming up in the Carlinville area.
Well, we're doing something a little bit different. We used to just do straight up walking history tours, and we are doing one of those this year as well. But we're also adding kind of an extended tour, a ghost hunters tour, where you get some time to actually do a mini paranormal investigation. So we have our first starting October 7th, and that is an extended tour. The 14th is our regular history walking tour. Then we have 21st is also something a little different. We're going to team up with Camden's in Carlinville and do a dinner and spirits tour.
Okay.
So basically, it just helps bring some business locally. We want to try to help the community as well, obviously, when we do our tours. And you get a chicken dinner from Camden's, and then you get our regular walking tour plus an extended tour. Then we wrap up on October 27th with another extended ghost hunters tour.
Gotcha. So I know I'm coming. I'm
Yeah.
coming on the 14th. I've got a small group of folks already. We're going to do the haunted history tour.
Yes.
So if you're out there and you want to join the folks with the What's That Like Nation here and come join me with Kaylan, we can do that. I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it's $25.
$25. So basically
Yeah.
the cost of going to a movie and getting popcorn.
Yeah, and I think that one starts maybe at 7.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
right?
7 to approximately 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And another thing, just to kind of put it out there, with any of our tours that we do in Carlinville, we do donate back to the courthouse and old jail restoration fund. We're really hoping that old jail gets open soon.
Yeah, so on the haunted history tours, what should I expect to do on that tour?
Well, you'd expect to do is to learn a lot of history and also a lot of hauntings, and you're also going to get your steps in. So I always tell people, even if you hate history and you hate ghosts, you're going to get a good workout.
Okay.
So that's like go to the gym. I mean, come listen to me talk, and you're going to get your steps in. But yeah, basically we do start at the Macoupin County Courthouse, tell some history, and we go into a couple different locations along our little tour route, and you just learn about the history and the weird of Carlinville.
Okay.
And then we do end up back in the courthouse. So it's a totally different atmosphere when you're going into the courthouse during the day than when you are at night.
So we are going into the courthouse.
You're going
then.
into the courthouse at night.
And you'll get your little gadgets and gizmos, and we'll see if something happens.
Exactly. Yeah, if you bring what you got, or we can take you through too. So it's a great experience to just come and help support the community and just learn more about it, because I think a lot of people think Macoupin County, what do we got? Well, we have a lot. We have a lot of interesting things, and so instead of going away for the weekend and doing something, just spend your Saturday with us.
Ghost Hunters Tour. How does that differ from the Haunted History Tour?
So with the Ghost Hunters Tour, basically what we're doing is you're getting about an extra hour and a half, and we're actually going to do an investigation within that hour and a half at the courthouse. So that you'll learn way more about the instruments, how we do an investigation. So if you're interested in trying to, do an investigation yourself, or maybe you've just always thought that'd be a cool thing to learn about, that'd be probably the tour for you.
Okay. And the one with dinner, that goes pretty late into the evening, right?
Yeah, we're probably going to start, we start at 6 and probably end at 11:30, so.
Okay. And that'll combine kind of both of them and you have a special guest on that night, is that right?
Yeah, Troy Taylor. I guess he's kind of special. No, he's really special. He owns American Hauntings, and he's written probably, I think, I'm going to guess around 23-ish books now.
Okay.
He's written a lot, 123. I left the 100 out of that. And he's just has a lot of history, and he has a lot of experience,
So that'll be fun, too.
Yeah.
And the prices might vary depending on which one you want to do.
I mean, it goes from 25, up to 50 if you want the dinner and the whole experience.
Gotcha.
But you are getting, a dinner.
And again, you can find all the information about the upcoming fall season tours at
IllinoisHauntings.com.
IllinoisHauntings.com. And I know on Facebook, if you go to Haunted Carlinville,
you can go to Haunted Carlinville or follow Troy Taylor, the owner, on his website. He posts all the time, too. So.
Yeah, well, good stuff there.
Yeah.
The last time you were here, we talked a lot about the courthouse. I know you educated me on what we would call the $1 million courthouse, and then the hotel that's behind it. And I think the judge was kind of our main story of the last podcast. Is there another local, maybe not Macoupin County, but someone else that we might get a little history on today with your visit?
Well, I'm really kind of focused on the old jail right now.
Yeah? Simply
because that's in the process of hopefully being restored and reopened. I'm crossing my fingers for this within the next, by the end of the year or beginning of next year. Back in the day, before it had the good old asbestos and lead paint that people found out about, we were able to investigate it and be able to go in there. And, of course, people have done tours in it. It's been closed for a long time. So really hoping to get back in there. And we do talk about it on the tour, but it has a lot of history with it as well. It was actually built in 1869, so it's been around for quite a while. And it has a lot of haunted history as well, so...
Any famous or ghosts that you remember from tours past that you want to talk about of that place?
Well, there's always been people that say that it's haunted. People will say that they see people in the windows. And, when I was a young kid and I'd go past it, I always thought it was the monster's house because it kind of looks like that. So I always just assumed it was haunted because it looked like it had to be.
Yeah. Any infamous ghosts that might be hanging around the old Carlinville jail, though?
Yeah, there's a lot of different stories, different ghosts that have been in our Carlinville jails. And I think probably the one that's gotten the most attention nationwide has been that of Martin Fines.
Martin Fines. You said nationwide.
Nationwide. His story made it to newspapers in New York. So
okay, well, tell me about this guy.
So Martin Fines was accused of murdering a man named Andrew Garrity. And while he was sitting in the Carlinville jail awaiting his trial, he said that there was a demon, his words, not mine, that would come and visit him in jail. He said this demon looked like a young German man, very tall and slender.
Okay.
And he said that he just completely tormented him. Now, of course, the people in Carlinville thought this guy was crazy, thought he was just trying to get sympathy. But one night, one of the prison guards thought that, well, I'm going to go check on Mr. Fines. And while he went to go check on him, he sees what appears to be an apparition or a spirit, ghost, whatever you want to call it, of a tall, slender German man. Now, he's petrified, runs out of the jail.
And the guard was petrified.
The guard, obviously.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, Martin was standing right next to the ghost and completely in shock, just kind of in a just
catatonic state.
Yeah, absolutely, just in shock. The guard runs out, of course, and when he gets the strength and the bravery to come back in, of course, he gets one of his friends to go with him, and they go and they check up on Martin, and the ghost or whatever it was is gone, and they find Martin in a fetal position, just rocking back and forth, just completely terrified. Now, people thought, okay, maybe Martin got to this guard and they concocted this story, or maybe the guard's overworked. But at any rate, no one really believed him. So, let's fast forward a few years, and there's this medium, a psychic.
Okay.
And she's from Mendota, Illinois. She's now saying that there's a spirit that's visiting her. It's a spirit of a young German man, tall and slender, obviously.
Yeah.
She said that this spirit was just murmuring all kinds of things to her about murder and revenge. but also of remorse and justice. And she's just getting tormented by this spirit coming to her all the time. Well, she's having a party one night, and there's about 12 other people sitting around talking to her. And all of a sudden, well, Betty, she goes into a trance. And what appears is the spirit of that tall, slender German man. And he makes his confession. He says that his name is Carl Rysded, and that he was actually the one that murdered Andrew Garrity. And he pinned it on Martin Fines because they were enemies in real life. And of course, after going to the other world, he decided it was time to let the truth be known. Well, makes his confession. You got 12 people all kinds of scared. And, you know, you have Betty. She comes out of her trance. And now you have people that are shocked, don't know what to do. They contact the St. Louis paper. They publish a story about it. Come to find out, you know, back in the day, there was a guy named Martin Fines. There was a guy named Andrew Garrity that was murdered. And, of course, there was a Carl Rysded. So.
And had Martin been dead by then?
Yeah, unfortunately, Martin was transferred to an Alton prison and had died.
Wow.
So there never was justice for Martin. But I can tell you with some of the digging in his past, he wasn't a nice guy anyway.
So either way, wound up where he needed to be.
But yeah, it's an interesting story that made its way, like I said, to St. Louis and was picked up by different publications, even in New York.
That's an interesting story.
Yeah.
That's a good one, Kaylan.
It's a good one.
Yeah. That's why you're the best.
That's right. I try.
Yeah. You got the best stuff. It makes me talk really high. I don't know why, but it's really good. So,
I have that effect on men.
Well, there you go. How about that? When you're doing tours like that, what scares you? I mean, you said you got hit by a soda before.
Yeah, that
but
was unpleasant.
what are the things that scare you enough you go, I don't want to do that again? Or is there anything that scares you that much?
Living people scare me. Yeah, that's really all it is.
Yeah.
You know, there's been times that I've been a little shooken up that I felt like it's time to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I do get that feeling sometimes, and when that feeling happens, then I just mosey myself out. Other than that, you know, we've been very fortunate, especially in Carlinville. We've had great people on our tours. It's been wonderful. But I'm definitely going into buildings alone with groups of people I don't know. So, you know, it is a bit of trust that you have to have with the audience and with the people that you're on your tour with. But so far, so good.
So far, so good. I think you can take care of yourself.
I think I'm okay, yeah.
Yeah, you'd be all right.
Yeah.
But you never know. Like, that's a good answer. You know,
if I go
the
missing,
dead don't scare you, the living do.
If I go missing, then, you know, tell Dateline NBC I was a great girl. So.
What should people know if they're skeptical of this at all, or if they've got an open mind in the other direction? What are the things that you would ask that they come into this with?
Just come into it with an open mind. I mean, it's going to be a myth until it becomes your reality.
Yeah.
And it's all about your perception of things. If you come into it and you're like, this is hokey, this is stupid, I don't want to do it, probably won't have a good time. Now, I've had people that come in with that attitude and they leave with a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
So it's really about just being open to it. And I do encourage people, if you're into a lot of the history, you know, our history tours are great for that. But we also do a lot of history on our paranormal investigations. And the paranormal investigation is going to be where you're going to get the ability to use different equipment that people in the paranormal field use. And you're also going to be able to just have one-on-one time exploring yourself.
Have you done any private investigations? So let's say there's somebody out there that thinks they live in a place and they just want some answers. Not for publicity, not for a tour. But have you had people reach out to you for things like that to just come check out a place?
Yeah, oddly enough, I've had that happen a few times over the last couple of months. Different businesses or different people that say, you know, I think that there's something going on. Can you please come in and see if there's any validity to this? Or please, do you know any of the history of this place? Can you tell me what it used to be? And we're definitely open to that. There's kind of a core group of us that like to go in and do that. We don't charge for it. We do this all so we can try to figure out what exactly is going on. Mm-hmm. And I like to do it too because it gives me an opportunity to see some of the history, especially locally, of what, you know, a building or a house may have been at one time.
Is there anywhere local you could talk about maybe that you just discovered this way?
Yeah, actually, I'll go ahead and talk about Little Bits Clothing because they're no longer in the building. So I think that's safe to talk about it. They were on the square in Carlinville. They had come to our Haunted America conference and spoke to us a little bit, and I had been in communication with them, and they said that since they opened their resale clothing store, that they had a lot of really weird things happening there.
And what's the location? That's on the square, you
On
said.
the square. It's by the Loomis house, which makes it even more interesting to me.
We talked about that last time. Yeah.
And the whole thing with the Loomis house is, obviously people believe it to be very haunted, but also that there was a brothel and that there are tunnels that run throughout the square and throughout Carlinville. That was one of the questions that the people at Little Bits had, which was, do you think this was part of the tunnels? Do you think this is part of the brothel? And I can't say for any 100% certainty that it was or it wasn't. But whenever we did our investigation, they had told us that they believed that there was a woman that they hear in the basement. Now, if you go into the basements of Carlinville, a lot of them are simply just sand basements. They're just the limestone walls, and especially on that side of the town when you're talking about how old the square is.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite possible that perhaps that was used, maybe not necessarily for a brothel, but definitely to transport things from building to building, because a lot of those buildings on the square are connected somehow.
Okay.
They also said that they saw apparitions, literal people, dead people, obviously. And that kind of spooked them a little bit. Things would move, things would fall off the walls. Now, we did spend several hours investigating this building, and guess what? Nothing happened.
Okay.
And I know that's not the climactic story that you want, but that just kind of goes to show that we're not going to make stuff up. If nothing happens, nothing happens. I'm not going to just make it up for a good story. Also, it goes to show you that when you watch these paranormal reality shows, it's kind of interesting how every time they find something, isn't it? There's always some sort of demon or ghost, and it's like, man, I could spend 10 hours in a building that's super haunted and nothing will happen because I can't predict it. Otherwise, I'd have lots of money.
You can't control it. Yeah.
No, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
That's a good story, too. You mentioned some of the paranormal shows. Are there any that you like?
No.
Okay.
No, and I don't mean that in like, it's really not my type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I used to, back in the day, watch Ghost Hunters when I was a teenager. I thought that was the coolest thing since sliced bread. That was my jam. I loved it. With a lot of these other shows, I do watch them to kind of make fun of them, like Ghost Adventures. If you ever notice, he'll like flex his muscles as he points to things because apparently ghosts are afraid of muscles. I don't know, but they seem a little silly, and I'm not, putting down what they do. Perhaps they really do go into haunted locations and find things, but to believe they find something every time, I can't say that I do.
That pushes the limits of what you
believe. It really
believe.
does.
Yeah.
It really does.
And your experience as well.
Yeah, somewhat.
Because things are not always the same.
No, and, I could go into, I've been into the Mineral Springs a couple of times now, and there's been times nothing has happened. And then one time I get a soda can thrown at me, so.
What kind of soda was it?
It was Mountain Dew.
Ugh.
I know, sugary.
Yeah.
Bad for you.
There you go. I'm a Diet Mountain Dew man myself, so.
This is regular. You wouldn't be interested.
I imagine you get people that come on some of these tours, and they're just like, nope, not going to see anything. Don't care. The husband brought me, or the spouse or the wife brought me, and no matter what you're going to do, you're not going to convince me of anything. Does that happen?
Absolutely. And you brought up a good point. It's usually the husband saying the wife drugged me to this.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens. And really my response to that is, I can't prove to you anything. I can only go off of my own experiences, and you can go off of your experiences. But I can also tell you that you will never experience anything if you have that attitude. I mean, if you think about it, if you're a spirit and you're trying to communicate, who are you going to go up to? You're going to go up to someone who doesn't want anything to do with you, or going to go to someone who's a little bit more open?
Yeah.
So I think, if someone would go up to you in real life and just start a conversation, then perhaps, a spirit or something else would start a conversation with you too.
Mm-hmm. And I know we probably talked about this the first time, but maybe somebody's a first-time listener of the podcast. If somebody wanted to get started in this, what are their resources? What should they do?
Well, there are tons of groups out there that do their own independent investigations. Obviously, you can come on a tour for American Hauntings or other people that do tours and get your feet in the water that way by seeing how other people do it. And that's really how I learned. Mm-hmm. I learned from watching other people that I respected, people that I knew weren't full of it, people that I knew had a good head on their shoulders, and I listened to them. And then from that, I take my own experiences and I have my own way of doing things. And, when you're investigating or going into a situation where there's something unusual happening, it's really dependent on what you bring to it.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own style. You'll see people that will take no equipment at all. They just take themselves and a piece of paper and they just write down what they think happened. You'll see people that bring in cameras and go the whole way with it and spend thousands of dollars on equipment. It's really up to you.
Yeah. If somebody were wanting to get into it, though, and they were searching online, are there some internet communities, Facebook groups, forums, so to speak, that you say are good, that you would visit to kind of join that community? Would that be a thing you'd do?
I really just kind of follow people in my own group and listen to their stories and experiences. And I also rely a lot on, newspapers.com, ancestry.com. I get a lot of my stories from there because what I've found is a lot of times these other communities, and I'm not pointing anyone out, specifically, but a lot of times they're just repeating a lot of the myths and legends that are out there. And they're not necessarily saying, I found this article dated this that said this, or I found this obituary, or I found this in the history books. They're just going off of what they hear. So you have to be very, very careful with what you believe that's out there. And I think a great example of that is the Milton School in Alton.
Okay.
And, the Milton School, it's a very interesting building. It's been known to be very haunted. Actually, speaking of ghost hunters before, ghost hunters did investigate Milton School some years back when they came to Alton, and they believed they were communicating with the spirit of a dead girl named Mary. Well,
okay.
Problem is there's no dead girl named Mary that ever passed away there.
so plot hole shot right through
absolutely.
It. Yeah.
And, that goes back to when you are online and looking at this stuff, you can find out that's not true by a simple Google search. You really can. The interesting thing about back in the day is they reported everything in the newspaper. I mean, they said if Joe Schmo went and had blueberry pie with his sister.
True.
So if there was a young girl who was murdered, you best be believing it's going to be in the newspaper.
Yeah, it would be in the Alton Telegraph archives.
It totally would.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Well, there you go.
So just do your own research and, then find like-minded people who are also willing to do a little bit of work and put the history into it.
But I guess the most important thing here, and I see this in you when I talk to you, is you have fun with it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this is a hobby for you.
Oh, yeah.
You're making a little money with it, but you're doing a lot of work to get it.
Absolutely.
And if you've got people that want to have a good time, want to have some fun, enjoy a Friday or Saturday night in October just because it's the season.
It is. Tis the season.
Come spend it with American Hauntings and Kaylan Schardan.
Absolutely, yeah. Come out and hang out, and you're going to have a good time. History, hauntings, and all of that.
Well, Kaylan, I can't ask you all the same get-to-know-you questions I gave you before, but how about I ask you some strange oddball ones, and we'll see what answers you give me.
Go for it.
Who would be your spirit animal?
Oh, wow. Probably a cat.
Yeah.
They like to be lazy, but they're also fierce. They'll cuddle up with you, and then they'll just scratch your eyes out. But no, I don't know. Possibly. I have a cat, so that's the first thing that comes to mind.
What's your favorite movie of all time?
These are so hard questions. That's a difficult one. I really like Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
I do. I don't know why. I just love that movie. There's one for you.
You can quote that all day long.
Absolutely.
There's a million of those. What's your favorite quote from that movie that you probably say once or twice every couple days? It's a part of your vocabulary. Whenever
Lloyd is trying to get a magazine out, there's an elderly lady. And he goes, "Don't you go dying on me." And I just say that sometimes.
That's funny. That's funny. What are some favorite scary movies you have for the listeners here that they can watch this Halloween season?
Well, I guess it just depends on what kind of scary you want. I actually just watched Jacob's Ladder last night. That's
an older one, right?
It is. Yeah. I go for the older, and it's a very disturbing movie, but a good movie. So if you're looking for psychologically disturbing, go for that.
Okay.
I also like a lot of really cheesy movies. I like the Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger movies because they get so cheesy. Yeah. And I just love that. So that's kind of my jam there. Also, you got the classics. You have, The Shining, and I love Pet Sematary. It's so hokey and I love it. It is literally one of my favorite movies.
What would your favorite fast food restaurant be?
I do like some Taco Bell.
Yeah.
I do. And an Arby's. I'm thinking Arby's.
Yeah, they got the meats.
They do have the meat.
Yeah. Here's some more questions for you. These are like this or that. One word answer. You can explain if you don't want to, but
it's
whatever.
Cool.
So would you rather have a Coke or a Pepsi?
Pepsi.
Pepsi?
Yeah.
Would you rather go out on a weekend or stay home?
Stay in. I'm antisocial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you rather be rich and die at 80 or live till 100?
Oh, rich and die at 80. I mean, who wants the rest of those years? They're awful anyway. Live it up.
All right. iPhone or Android?
I have an iPhone now, so let's go there.
Okay. Would you rather play a board game or a video game?
Board game, because the controllers on the video games confuse me, and I get motion sickness pretty bad.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. What would your favorite board game be?
I'm great at Monopoly.
Monopoly?
But I also have to be the banker and cheat. But I'm really good.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I love Monopoly.
Yeah.
It's
classic.
Nobody will play with me, though.
Aw.
Because
you cheat?
No, it's because I don't give any quarter. You know, I'm going to buy everything I can, and then you're going to pay me for it.
That's right.
And that's the rules of the game, and it's just business, baby.
It really is. It is.
Would you rather go to the mountains or the beach?
Mountains.
Mountains?
Yeah, sand, stuck places. It's bad.
Enough said.
Yeah.
All right. Country music or rock music?
I hate country music with a passion, so let's go rock music.
Okay.
Yeah. Mark
Wahlberg or Donnie Wahlberg?
You know, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch is so classic, but then you have New Kids on the Block. Let's go. I'm going to give it to Donnie because he doesn't get attention.
Led Zepp or the Beatles?
Led Zeppelin.
All right. Katy Perry or Lady Gaga?
Lady Gaga, of course.
All day long, huh? And then the last one for you here, because I know we've talked about your music the last time we were here. Rob Zombie or Marilyn Manson?
Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
Yeah, love him.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah,
Kaylan.
A little bit about me.
I want to thank you again for stopping by the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, again, one of the most popular guests we ever had here on the What's That Like podcast. People wanted to know, what's that like to be a ghost hunter? You told them what it's like.
Absolutely.
And we got a lot of comments, a lot of feedback. And so I know you got a lot of stuff coming up here in the fall. Why don't you recap again where everyone can find you and the tours and everything they can do?
Yeah, Illinois Hauntings is our website for pretty much everything. And then you can also go to Haunted Carlinville on Facebook and find us there as well.
And if you got a haunted place yourself and you want Kaylan and her friends to come check it out, just get a hold of you there too.
Yeah, Facebook is probably the best. And we're also hauntedseaville@gmail.com.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, there you have it. Kaylan Schardan, once again, she's a great guest. You know, a lot of the stuff she was talking about there with the old county jail and the story she was telling about the tall, slender German, it's giving me kind of chills, I got to tell you. Good stuff. But you'll hear about that and more. Again, if you want to join the What's That Like Nation on the tour on October 14th. Once again, go to IllinoisHauntings.com if you want to register for that. It's $25 a person. I think it'll last 3 or 4 hours. It'll be a walking tour through Carlinville. You hear a lot of haunted history. She gave me a little bit of a preview of what some of the topics might be. If you like what you've heard here from her on the show, you're going to like what you hear from her on the tour even better. So thanks again, Kaylan, for coming on. As she was leaving, we were talking about some other things, and I can guarantee you there will be a Kaylan episode 3 because she's really got some more stuff. And we might not even do so much paranormal. We might do some kind of local crime related stuff. So that could be the topic of the day the next time she's on the show. What I want to do now is bring on my friend Greg Shively. Greg, of course, is, if you know him, he doesn't look like he's as old as he is. He's a very fair-skinned individual, slight of build, and he actually was still trick-or-treating by the time he was 23 years old. So, you know, with Halloween season coming up, I thought it might be a good time to talk about how you can get away with trick-or-treating into your 20s. So let's go to the phones right now and see what...
Out of time this week.
What?
Hey, we're out of time.
Bob, really? Yeah, okay. Well, hey, Greg. Once again, sorry, buddy.
Again, you son of a...
Well, that's it. Another episode of the What's That Like podcast. We'll be back to you real soon. Peace out. What's That Like is available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Search for What's That Like. Subscribe today and never miss an episode. Streaming is available at SoundCloud.com and on the SoundCloud app. Follow What's That Like at Facebook.com/What's That Like Podcast and on Twitter at What's That Like Pod. All opinions of the guests of the What's That Like podcast are their own, not necessarily the views of the host or the podcast producers. We hope you enjoy this podcast serving Central Illinois and beyond. Peace out!